President Donald Trump not at all happy with a reporter who asked what he called a very nasty question about a supposed new term that stockbrokers are using on the floor in Wall Street.
Mr. President, Wall Street analysts have coined a new term called the taco trade. They're saying Trump always chickens out on your tariff threats, and that's why markets are higher this week. What's your response to that?
I kick out?
Chicken out.
Oh, isn't that nice? Chicken out. I've never heard that. You mean because I reduced China from 145% that I set down to 100 and then down to another number? And I said you have to open up your whole country. And because I gave the European Union a 50% tax tariff, and they called up and they said, please, let's meet right now. Please, let's meet right now. And I said, OK, I'll give you till July 9. I actually asked them, I said, what's the date? Because they weren't willing to meet. And after I did what I did, they said, we'll meet anytime you want. And we have an end date of July 9th. You call that chickening out? Because we have $14 trillion now invested, committed to investing when Biden didn't have practically anything. This country was dying. You know, we have the hottest country anywhere in the world. I went to Saudi Arabia. The king told me, he said, you got the hottest, we have the hottest country in the world right now. 6 months ago, this country was stone cold dead. We had a dead country. We had a country people didn't think it was going to survive, and you ask a nasty question like that. It's called negotiation. You set a number. And if you go down, you know, if I set a number at a ridiculous high number and I go down a little bit, you know, a little bit, they want me to hold that number, 145% tariff. Even I said, man, that really got up. You know how it got? Because of fentanyl and many other things, and you added it up. I said, where are we now? We're at 145%. I said, whoa, that's high. That's high. They were doing no business whatsoever, and they were having a lot of problems. We were very nice to China. I don't know if they're going to be nice to us, but we were very nice to China. And in many ways, I think we really helped China tremendously because, you know, they were having great difficulty because we were basically going cold turkey with China. We were doing no business because of the tariff, because it was so high. But I knew that. But don't ever say what you said. That's a nasty question. Go ahead.
Yeah, President Donald Trump not happy with the nasty question or the nasty reporters. And there was a lot of criticism of President Donald Trump in the Oval Office yesterday after he swore in Judge Jeanine Pirro, as the new U.S. attorney for the D.C., as the District of Columbia. And President Donald Trump was asked about comments Elon Musk made on Sunday morning regarding the big, beautiful bill and some of his concerns that it did not cut enough waste, fraud, and abuse that was identified by his Doge team. Here's how President Donald Trump responded.
Mr. President, Elon Musk in a television interview criticized the one big, beautiful bill, saying he was disappointed it didn't cut enough, essentially, that it undercut the Doge efforts. What's your reaction to that?
Well, the reaction's a lot of things. Number one, we have to get a lot of votes. We can't be cutting, we need to get a lot of support. And we have a lot of support. We had to get it through the House. The House was, we have no Democrats. You know, if it's up to the Democrats, they'll take the 65% increase. You know, if that doesn't get approved, this country is going to have a 65% increase in taxes and lots of other problems, big problems, almost bigger than that. But we'll have a 65% increase as opposed to the largest tax cut in the history of our country. We will be negotiating that bill, and I'm not happy about certain aspects of it, but I'm thrilled by other aspects of it. That's the way they go. It's very big. It's the big, beautiful bill, but the beautiful is because of all of the things we have. The biggest thing being, I would say, the level of tax cutting that we're going to be doing. We're going to make people really be able to, we'll have the lowest tax rate we've ever had in the history of our country, and tremendous amounts of benefit are going to the middle income people of our country, low and middle income people of our country. So we're going to see what happens, because the Senate, as you know, is negotiating with us, and they have to then go back to the House, and, you know, it's got a way to go. But I have to say, Speaker Johnson and Thune has done an incredible job. John Thune has done a fantastic job, and they're working together with me and others. And I think we have an amazing, if we pull this off, remember, we have 0 Democrat votes because they're bad people. There's something wrong with them. You know, they'll let people pour into our country. Single biggest problem is we had 21 million people pour into our country, probably higher than that. and they're people that weren't supposed to be here. And many of those people are bad. Murderers, drug dealers, the mentally insane. They were closing mental institutions all over the world, not South America, all over the world. They're coming into our country, and we're getting them out. And we're having a hard time because some judges aren't making it very easy for us, and it's tough enough. They approved that. They allowed that to happen to our country. We don't have one Democrat vote. And if I were a Democrat, I'd be voting for this bill, and I'd get elected to any position I want as a Democrat. They're crazy. They're voting for a 65% tax increase. And they're only doing it for hatred. They're not doing it for any reason. They know it's terrible. Terrible politics, in my opinion. But so we have no Democrat votes. That means we have to get almost all Republican votes. And I think we're very close to doing that. I think it'll be very successful. Yeah, please.
Yeah, that's President Donald Trump referring to the big, beautiful bill and how the Democrats are hell-bent to see it fail, which is also kind of a weird political tactic, especially with the tax decreases that everybody, Republicans and Democrats, red and blue states, are going to experience. One of the most underrated things in this bill is the Trump account, which does a couple of things. First, children across America would experience the miracle of compounded growth. A child born after this big, beautiful bill passes would get an initial $1,000 into an account deposited by the government that is invested in the stock market. Plus, there would be $5,000 invested annually. That at a historical average growth rate of 7%, that means that they would have about $170,000 invested by 18. By 35, it could be worth $700,000, and the accumulation over said period of time would mean that you are going to have a massive retirement account when it comes time for you to retire if you hold on to it. The other thing is that you're going to see all of this government money invested not in Social Security or just handed away, but invested in America's economy. So taxpayer dollars gets reinvested in the economy. It gets reinvested in private businesses like Apple and Boeing and McDonald's and Disney and all these other places. And that means that you're not just an American citizen, but you're a shareholder in the economic boon that is the United States of America, and your retirement is based off of the income you earn as a shareholder, not just taxpayer dollars that are funneled generation to generation, but like some kind of Ponzi scheme. This is the privatization of Social Security and a reinvestment in America's future, unlike we've ever seen. It's not getting the spotlight that it deserves, and this, in my opinion, is one of the most genius things that's in this bill that needs to happen, whether or not other aspects of the bill are passed or cut. The Trump accounts, I think, are, I don't know why more people aren't talking about them, unless, of course, they just want folks to remain dependent on the federal government for their entire lives, which may actually be the case. President Donald Trump also was asked a couple of questions about Gaza and the Middle East and how the situation in Gaza is going. Here's what he said.
No, we're dealing with the whole situation in Gaza. We're getting food to the people of Gaza. It's been a very nasty situation, very nasty fight. October 7th was a very nasty day, the worst that I think I've ever seen. It was a horrible day, and people aren't going to forget that either. So we'll see how that all works out.
And Donald Trump saying, look, we're helping the people in Gaza, but we're also not forgiving what Hamas and Hezbollah have done to Israel and to Israelis. We're helping people in Gaza that were affected basically by the terrorists of Hamas and Hezbollah who were used as human shields. We're going to try to get them to some kind of safe situation. And Donald Trump, remember, wants to have countries invest in Gaza. He wants to build up Gaza and make it a place where everyone is thriving and not just fighting for survival. Steve Witkoff, who is the special envoy to the Middle East, was there. He was asked some questions about ceasefire agreements and what's going on with Israel and Iran and the escalation potentially that could happen because of, the Iranian nuclear facilities that are ramping up and Israel wanting to take them out with bombing attacks. And here was Steve Witkoff's report on the situation in the Middle East and how close they are to a peace agreement.
I think that we are on the precipice of sending out a new term sheet that hopefully will be delivered later on today. The president is going to review it, and I have some very good feelings about getting to a long-term resolution, temporary ceasefire, and a long-term resolution, a peaceful resolution of that conflict.
That is, of course, always on the agenda. Donald Trump, the peacemaking president, looking to end all conflicts, not just in the Middle East, but in Ukraine and elsewhere. And he was asked point blank and gave a very interesting answer, what I believe to be a very interesting answer, to a question from a reporter about Donald Trump's intervention with the Iranian attack with the Israeli attack, on Iran.
Did you warn Prime Minister Netanyahu against taking some sort of actions that could disrupt the talks there? In a phone call last week?
Well, I'd like to be honest. Yes, I did. Next question, please.
Looking at sanctions.
I did, yeah.
If Senate Republicans want to push
It's not a warning. I said I don't think it's appropriate.
What exactly did you tell him?
I just said I don't think it's appropriate. We're having very good discussions with him, and I said I don't think it's appropriate right now. Because if we can settle it with a very strong document, very strong, with inspections and no trust. I don't trust anybody. So no trust. I want it very strong where we can go in with inspectors. We can take whatever we want. We can blow up whatever we want, but nobody getting killed. We can blow up a lab, but nobody's going to be in the lab, as opposed to everybody being in the lab and blowing it up, right? Two ways of doing it. Yeah, I told him this would be inappropriate to do right now because we're very close to a solution. Now, that could change at any moment. Could change with a phone call. But right now, I think they want to make a deal. And if we can make a deal, save a lot of lives.
Yeah. So President Donald Trump not worried about intervention with Israel or keeping Israel from doing anything that could further damage his deal. And Donald Trump believing, well, he doesn't trust Iran, a deal with Iran could potentially be on the table, which brings us to the situation in Ukraine and Russia. Ukraine and Russia and Vladimir Putin amping up his attacks on Ukraine. Zelensky amping up his verbal attacks on Vladimir Putin. Both sides really not showing any interest in any kind of ceasefire or peace agreement or end to the war, and Russia looking to just at this point take over all of Ukraine, maybe feeling like that's potentially on the table. Donald Trump the other day said, I don't know what's going on with Vladimir Putin. He's gone totally crazy. He's never been like this before. And Russia now saying, you know what, that just shows Donald Trump's acting emotionally. A reporter asked President Donald Trump, what's your take now on Russia? Do you think that they're being disrespectful?
Do you believe the Russians are being disrespectful when they say that your criticisms of Putin are simply an emotional response? And do you still believe that Putin actually wants to end the war?
I can't tell you that, but I'll let you know in about 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks, we're going to find out very soon. We're going to find out whether or not he's tapping us along or not. And if he is, we'll respond a little bit differently. But it'll take about a week and a half, 2 weeks. We have Mr. Witkoff is here, who's doing a phenomenal job, is dealing with them very strongly right now. They seem to want to do something, but until the document is signed, I can't tell you. Nobody can. I can say this. That I'm very disappointed at what happened a couple of nights now, where people were killed in the middle of what you would call a negotiation. I'm very disappointed by that. Very, very disappointed.
Yeah, so Donald Trump saying, look, I'm not discouraged, I'm not enraged, I'm not emotional, I'm disappointed. We're trying to work on an agreement here. We're trying to get this thing finished, and they keep bombing and sending in drones and attacks, and they're killing innocent people, and that just seems wrong. But everything with Donald Trump is a tactic. Everything that Donald Trump has is premeditated. Every Truth Social post, every question or answer he gives to the media, every phone call he takes, it's all timed perfectly out for his plan to eventually come to fruition, and Donald Trump's not going to stop until it does. Like, for example, with Harvard. He's been very firm with Harvard. He's put massive, sanctions, you could call them, I guess, on Harvard, taken away their funding, billions of dollars of funding, taken away their tax-exempt status, engaged them in litigation. They're engaging back in litigation. It's become a battle between Harvard and the White House, and President Donald Trump says, look, they wanted to play politics. They treated us badly to begin with. We didn't start this, but we're going to end it.
See, look, Harvard has been a disaster. They've taken $5 billion plus. $5 billion. Nobody knew that they were making this cut. If we didn't do this, we would have never found this out, Pam. They're taking $5 billion. And I'd rather see that money go to trade schools. And by the way, they're totally anti-Semitic at Harvard, as you know, and some other colleges too, in all fairness to them. And it's been exposed, very exposed. And I think they're dealing very badly. Every time they fight, they lose another $250 million. Yesterday, we found another $100 million. And they have, they have a fund, an endowment, $52 billion. All right? They get a lot of that from the United States. And I think it's ridiculous. I think everyone's coming up to me saying, we love the idea of trade schools with that kind of money and money from others, but money from them. You can have the best trade schools anywhere in the world. You give them to Iowa, Indiana, lots of good states, well-run states, and you give them the money. They can only be used for trade schools, and they'll teach people how to build motors and cars and AI.
And all those other things that are part of President Donald Trump's package of manufacturing that's an investment that's coming in from Qatar and from Indonesia and from Taiwan and from all these other places that are bringing hundreds of millions, if not billions and trillions of dollars into the United States of America. They're going to need skilled labor. If you're building a warehouse or if you're building a plant where you're going to be constructing something, you're going to need a heating and HVAC. You're going to need plumbing and electrical. You're going to need painters and carpenters. You're going to need all that stuff. We're going to need people to build these motors and make sure that the conveyor belts or whatever else they're using are on track. Robotics is really one of the probably most in demand. Robotics engineers and robotics maintenance people are going to be one of the most in demand opportunities there are. And Donald Trump wants to make sure that we have plenty of those people to help out. And billions of dollars being funneled from Harvard to trade schools would certainly help. Plus, he also wants to make sure that the foreign students coming into Harvard are foreign students who are not looking to harm the United States of America, either physically or mentally.
I want to make sure that the foreign students are people that can love our country. We don't want to see shopping centers exploding. We don't want to see the kind of riots that you had. And I'll tell you what, many of those students didn't go anywhere. Many of those students were troublemakers caused by the radical left lunatics in this country.
Yeah. And so Donald Trump says, look, we're going to make sure we're going to vet everybody. We're going to make sure for our security, for our sanctity, for our peace of mind, that everybody coming in for a Harvard education is doing exactly that. And that they're not just looking for a way into the country or to learn something that they can use against our country, either here or abroad. So looking to end the war in the Middle East between Iran and Israel and Hezbollah and Hamas, looking to end the war in Eastern Europe between Ukraine and Russia, and looking to, I guess, keep the war going here at home between the White House and Harvard. There's a lot more to talk about. There's a rescission package supposedly headed to the floor of the House of Representatives. There's some other stuff that Donald Trump has planned for today. We're going to bring you all the information in our second podcast. Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. If you haven't yet heard our second podcast, we live stream every single day at 1 p.m. Eastern time on our live streaming platforms. Or if you prefer, just go listen to the download at your leisure, whenever it's convenient for you. Go to Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. Go to whatever podcast platform you're on, search Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, download, listen, and enjoy.